Hey robot makers, hope you're having a good day so far. So do you want to learn how to add a weather skill to your AI assistant? Then this is the show for you. So let's dive straight in. My name is Kevin. Come with me as we build robots, bring them to life with code, and have a whole load of fun along the way. Okay, let's get over to our keynote. And as I've said today, this show is all about building our AI out and adding extra skills. So it's weather is the skill today. We might add in an extra skill as well, a fun facts skill, which is a nice easy one. So let's have a look at the session today. So we'll continue building our AI assistant, as I said, in Python. We're going to be building the weather skill today. We're going to be using something called Openweathermap to get the weather data from. And we're also going to be using a Python library which interacts with that Openweathermap, which is called Openweathermap. And then we're going to create some Python code. So let's have a look at where we said we would be a couple of weeks ago when we started this. So how are we doing against our actual goals? So we've got the speech recognition and the speech synthesis working. We have the command loop, which processes our commands working. The jokes one was one of the first ones we did. And today we're going to do the weather skill. So we've got a couple of extra ones to go yet. So let's have a look at what we have on our to-do list. So we have the calendar skill. So what I'm thinking with a calendar skill is that we can have some kind of web-based, iCal connectivity, so you can just connect your phone or your Gmail or whatever account to and subscribe to the calendar appointments, and that you can create and remove appointments similar to what we did with the to-do skill. Another one that we can add as well is the news. I was thinking there maybe just getting the top news articles for your area or your region. And also home automation. That sounds like a good one too. So in the chat, I put a little poll there to see what people think we should be working on next. I can see at the moment we've got home automation sort of a couple of points ahead of the calendar one. Nobody's interested in news just yet. So we will work on that. And I'll come to your questions shortly as well, Carlos, as well. I can see they're in the chat too. Okay, so the user interface as well, that's one that we haven't worked on yet. There's quite a bit extra that we need to work on to make that come to life. We'll be using something called Flask to do that, but that's quite a heavy piece to do as well. Okay, so the weather skill, let's talk about that. So what does it take to build out a weather skill for our AI assistant? So we need to get the weather forecast for the next 5 to 10 days. We probably want to get today's weather as well. So at the start of the day, I might say to my AI assistant, give me the weather, and it will tell me all about that. We can have a look at what kinds of weather data we can get from Openweathermap. There's all kinds of different APIs we can pull. The sunrise, sunset. We can get the UV, ultraviolet index. We can get air pollution levels. We can get the minimum, maximum temperature, feels like temperature. There's so much different data that we can actually get there. So we want to be able to just ask for that as well on our AI assistant. Okay, so let's move to the next one. So what we need to do first of all is create an account on Openweathermap. So if you go to openweathermap.org and you'll create an account there, it's completely free. They do have paid plans, but we don't need them at all. We're going to be using like really small amounts of data, and these are intended for people like Apple or Google or whoever who want to crunch loads and loads of data and have loads of requests. So we're going to get 1 or 2 possibly a day. We're not going to get that many, so it doesn't have any impact to them at all. So we can just create an API key for free, and I'll show you how to do that. So let me just switch over to this camera for a second, and I'll bring up my browser, and I shall show you how we go about creating that. So let me just get the right screen up. So if I come over here, so I'm on Openweathermap, and we can just, I've already logged in here, but essentially if I just log out there, I can show you what you do. You create an account on there by going to create an account. You need an email address. Once you've gone into there, so if I just log into that, there's this API key section here, and what we need to do is generate a new key. So we could call this like AI or something like that, and generate it. And that will create a new one. I'm going to delete these after the session, so it doesn't matter if you can see these and you try to use them. It doesn't impact at all that, but that's how you create them. And this sort of random set of digits here, that's what we'll be using in our code, so that we don't actually have to log into the website. We can just give it this this token, and we can get the weather results back. Okay, so let's get back over to Keynote. So that's how we create the Openweathermap account. So openweathermap.org. And openweathermap.org gives you JSON data. So when you create that account, what that will do is enable you to sort of push and get commands, get data from the API. But we work in Python, we want it to be a little bit easier. So some really kind soul has created this Python library that's called PyOWM, which stands for OpenWeatherMap. And that makes it really, really easy for us to get data from OpenWeatherMap and use it in our code. So they have this one routine, this one function that's called onCall, and we simply just pass it the longitude and latitude of where we want to get the forecast for, and it will pass back this object which has got all the data that we could possibly want in it, and it's very quick. So that's what we'll be using in our code shortly. We're using this one call. What else do we need to look at there? So where are we at? So the latitude and longitude, I was thinking, I don't really want to have to figure out where I am. I know I could go on like Google Maps or something and figure out what my latitude and longitude is. But this is Python. We can figure this out using some libraries. So what we want to do is we want to give it a place name and a country, and then it tell us what the latitude and longitude of that place country is. So there's a Python library. There's always a Python library to help us do these kinds of things, and this one's called Geopi. So we can install Geopi, and I'll show you how to do these shortly. You just do pip install Geopi, pip install PyOWM to install the different libraries, and that means that we can then use them in our code. So we'll be using Geopi, and we can simply just pass it in a string, the location, comma, and the country, and then it will give us back our latitude and longitude, which we can then pass to the OpenWeatherMap. So that's what we're going to do in the code. It sounds more complicated than it actually is. And this is just a sort of shortcut for figuring that out. You could figure out your latitude and longitude anyway, but I'm assuming that our AI assistant probably isn't going to be moving about too much. It's probably going to be like a Siri or an Alexa, and it's just going to be, or a Google Home, just sat somewhere physically that's not going to change too much. But with a GPS module, we could probably feed in that latitude and longitude from our robot if it's a roving robot. So that's not a problem. So what we're aiming for, we're going to build a new class that's a weather class. And what I want to be able to do is have it, we call a function like forecast, and it comes back with a string that we can then pass to our speech synthesis library, alf, and alf.say, and then he'll say something like, here is today's forecast. Today will be mostly, and it'll give the detail status like cloudy, with the temperature of the temperature, humidity of the humidity, with the pressure of whatever the pressure is in millibars, and then the sunrise at whatever time the sunrise is at and the sunset time as well. And then finally, the ultraviolet level is, and then we can get back a value of between 1 and I think it's 11. And depending what that number is, there's like an advisory whether you can walk outside without any kind of skin protection, or whether you need to apply some kind of sunscreen because you're definitely going to get sunburn, and all the gradations between that. So I've created a little function that will take that number and convert it into an extra string that we can add to this. So we're going to build up that string, that message that we're going to have our robot say. So that's what we're going to do there. Okay, so if you're enjoying these videos, please make sure you give me a like on the video while you're watching now, or if you're watching live, or whether you're watching on playback, whether you're watching on YouTube or Facebook. Leave me a little comment as well. If you're on the live chat at the moment, you can join in with the survey and let me know which skill you think we should be working on next. And if you're on YouTube and you want to get notification of these videos when they go live, because I do a midweek video usually as well, hit the little bell button and set that to all, and you'll get notified when we go live. And yes, there is a new video every single Sunday. So let me just bring up my little call to action there. So every single Sunday I go live around 7 o'clock local time in the UK, whether that's British Summer Time or GMT like the slide says there, and you know where you are around the world and what that means time zone wise. So I tried to help out there by putting a few time zones in, but I think you probably know the translation for that. If you're watching live, you know this is the time we go live. If you've not checked out the website, smarsfan.com, Smars, the little robots I absolutely love. Looking for a Smars robot. Here's one I prepared earlier. So these little guys are really great fun to build, and I put all details of all the robots that I put together, you know, including things like the OpenCat one I'm working on, PicoCat, and also the tiny little Smars mini robot as well. So if you want details about how to build these, all the code, all the tutorials, links to the videos, then head over to smarsfan.com. There's also a learning platform on there, so there's quite a few free courses, and I'm building new courses all the time. So there's one on Python, an introduction to Python, and there's also an introduction to robotics, as well as how to build the little Smars robot that we've just seen there, and also the quad version of that, the walking version. And this quad version here, he's got a little camera on the front there, Raspberry Pi camera, and he's got a Raspberry Pi Zero as his brain there. And this code that we're writing today can actually run on a Zero. So we could have this little bot get the weather and all that kind of stuff too. And finally, if you want to help out the show as well, because it takes quite a lot of effort and expense to run the show, you can always help out by buying me a coffee. If you go to buymeacoffee.com/Kevin McAleer, you can help keep the show running for an extra year. So that helps pay for all this other stuff. Cool, so that's everything covered off there. Let's get back to it. And I think it must be demo time. Awesome. Right, so let me head over to Visual Studio. Let me just get my screen set up there. So I'm just here in the corner. Right. So this is the code as we left it when we created the to-do list. So if I just click on the little run button there, hopefully you can hear it when it says
hello.
It says hello. Tell me a joke.
There are two types of people, those who understand Roman numerals and those who don't.
Goodbye.
Goodbye.
There we go. So that's our code working. We can interact with it with our voice. We can get it to do these few skills so far. So what we want to do today is create a new skill. So we're going to create a new file. Let's call it weather.py. And then let's just give this a bit of a name, weather.py AI weather skill. I always like to date these things as well, just so I know when I did them. July. Okay. So what we're going to do is we're going to import those libraries. So I'm going to type it in first of all, and then we need to actually install them using pip. So let's do pi Openweathermap. So from that, import, and then we want to import OWM. That's an M, not an N there. And we also want to import Geopi, which is that thing that's going to give us the location. And we're going to import a locator. So we're going to import one that's called nominatim. And finally, we're going to import date time because we're going to do some date time stuff with our weather. So this pi OWM and Geopi, what we need to do in our little terminal is we need to do pip install and then pi OWM. I've already got this installed, so it should find it already. And we do pip install Geopi as well. Cool. So they're already satisfied. I've already installed them because I've been working on this code already. Okay, so next up what we're going to do then is we're going to create our class. So let's create one that's called weather. And what we want to do is we want to have a location. So the location of where you want the forecast for. So I'm going to call this _ location. Oops, let's just type that correctly. And the location, I'm in Bolton, in Great Britain. Okay, and then next we need that API key that we created previously. So when we had that funny string that we cut and paste from the website, which is that one there. If I grab that code, I think I just click on that little copy, is it? Nope. Let's just copy that string there. And let's go back over to our code and just paste this in. So this is going to be our API key. So you'll need to replace this with your API key. I'm going to delete this after we've used it. Oops, we need to have that in speech marks as well because it's just a string of characters. Okay, and then we can create a new function, which is going to be our initialization function. So let's call this _init. That's the way that we do this. And then we use self. Now people are saying, what does this self mean? What do these double underscores mean? So self is to do with when we create weather objects further down. So if at the bottom of our code here, we create weather1, and we say that's of type weather, like so. Oops. I can create another one, which is weather2 equals weather, like so. And then I can do weather. It's not happy because I've started to create a piece of code there and I've not done anything. Let's just empty that out. Right. So if I do weather1, I've not got anything in here to set yet. So maybe I could set the API key. So I could set that to be 123. And then in weather2, I could create that to be API key to be 456, like so. So if we just print out what they are, print out weather1.api key, print out weather2 API key, and just run that. What's it not happy with there? Nominate Tim, I think it is. There we go. You can see there it's printed out the first weather API key and the second one, and they're different numbers because they're different objects. So when we're creating our class, we need to create this so that this self means the one that we're using right now. So that's what self means. It's referring to the specific object. So in itself, on weather1, refers to, so whatever data we've got in there is its own personal private data. So that's what the self means. And then let's put that back for a second. And then the double underscore thing. So the location, when I typed in weather1 or weather2 and then I pressed dot, API key comes up there on the autocomplete. But location is supposed to be hidden away. You're not supposed to see that because the double underscore means hide that away from people. So it's kind of a way of just hiding things that you don't really want people to see. Right, we can get rid of all that stuff now. Let's go back to our init. Okay, so what we're going to do now is we're going to just set up the Openweather Manager. So let's just create OWM self.api key. So what this is going to do is going to create a new Openweathermap object, and it's going to pass in that API key to that object. So that's what we're importing from here, from this library. And that's going to be the thing that gets the weather forecast for us. We then need to create something that's called a manager. So Openweathermap, so self.ow, which is the thing we created there, .weather manager, like so. And then what we need to do is create a locator. So our locator is going to be the thing that holds the location of where we are. So let's just use that nominate him. And we're going to pass in there. We have to just put this user agent thing, and I think you just put any old rubbish in there. So I'm just going to put in my geocoder. It's just like a unique string, doesn't really mean anything, just has to have one. Right, so in the city, I'm living in Bolton, and the country is Great Britain. So we've already got location there, but I'm just splitting it out just so that we can see how this is sort of put together. And then what we do is we do self.location equals city plus, I think it's comma, and then plus country. And they need to be, that's fine, because they're local variables, that's fine. Okay, and then what we do is we do the locator equals location.geocode. So location.geocode. So let me just find that locator.geocode. There we go. And then we pass in that location that we just created. Okay. And then what we can do is we can say we want to set the latitude and longitude. So we want to set that as whatever this lock has just returned, because it's calling geocode. Geocode is going to take that place name and it's going to return back to us a latitude and longitude. I'll unpack this in a second just to show you exactly what's going on there. So latitude. Sorry, it's getting that wrong. So it's geo lock.latitude. There we go. Self.long equals lock.long. Okay, and that's that function done. Okay, so what I'm going to do down here, if I just go into Python, and let's just rerun some of the things that we've just done. So let's just do import PyOpenWeatherManager. Sorry, what have I done wrong there? So it's Openweathermanager. And what else do we want to do? We want to import Geopi, and we want to set that API key as well. Let's just grab that. I just want to show you in kind of code typed in on the command line, just so you can see what's going on. So what we did is we created an OW from the OWM. We passed in the API key, like so. Oops. So that's pi OWM dot, like so. And then we created a manager. So let's just do manager equals pi, in fact it can just be OWM dot weather manager. Okay, and then we created a locator by doing that nominating thing. So that'll be Geopi dot nominate him, and then we just needed to pass in that user agent, whatever, and then we set a city to be Bolton and our country to be GB. And then what we did is well, let's just jump to the bit where we do the location. So locator.geocode, and then let's pass in let's just pass in the text as I wanted it there. So if I just do Bolton, comma GB, and then I do locator dot latitude. Let's print out. So 53 dot whatever, that's my latitude. If I do long look.long, there's my longitude. So it's converted that place name into latitude and longitude. So that's kind of what that block of code is doing there, and it's just doing it in a sort of very long-winded way. Correct my typo there. Right, let me just quit out of that. Just wanted to show you how that actually works. So next up we are going to, let me just see which one is the best one to do next. Right, let's create the weather, the function that returns the weather. So let's do def, and we'll just call it weather. And we're simply going to just do a forecast equals self.manager, and then we're using that one call. One call returns all the data that we could possibly hope for, and all we need is the latitude and longitude. So if we just do lat and self.long, and let's just make sure it understands which these are. So if I do lat equals lat and then long equals long, it should be happy with that. And then we just return the forecast. Okay, so we can actually run this by creating a little demo program. I just want to see that it's actually doing something at this point. So let's just create a little demo piece of code down here first. And we're going to create my weather. And let's just make this to be the weather class that we've just created. Like so. And then if we do my weather dot weather, oh, let's just do print actually. Print my weather dot weather, like so. Now why is it not happy with that? Unindent, so it's not happy with, what's it not happy with there? Because let's just try running that. What have I done wrong there? Oh, it should work fine. That usually means I've not done this bit properly. So there we go. There was an indentation, that's why it's complaining. Right, so if I just run that, it's run, it's got back a weather object. So what is in that weather object? So that's what we need to unpack. That's what the bulk of the code is going to be. So what I'm also going to do as well is I'm going to make this a property. So rather than having to run it with the brackets at the end, we can just use it as if it's like a variable. So if I just put on there the decorator and just say that that's a property, like so, it means we don't need to have the those sort of brackets at the end like that. If I just run that again, it's unhappy with something there, so that's not long, that's lon, I think, is it? Let me try. Yeah, that's worked better there. Cool. Okay, so what we're going to do next is we're going to build out that forecast thing. So that's just given us a weather object, which is great. What we want to do now is have a little function that's going to read in that weather object and unpack it all the data. So I'm going to call this one forecast. So that's going to have a self as well, and it will also have no, that's fine actually. It doesn't need to be passed anything. It can use all references. So what we're going to do here is we're going to say, I like to do a bit of a doc string there, so returns the forecast at this location. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to say forecast equals self dot, let's just do that same thing that we've done there just to get the forecast in. And then next we're going to do detailed status. So now we can do forecast dot daily forecast daily. And you can see there's a couple of options. We can do an hourly, a minute, or a daily one. I'm going to go for the daily one. And in the daily one, and it's daily for the next 5-10 days, I think it is. So you can use this index. So if I put that 0 in there, that means today. If I do 1, that means tomorrow, and so on. So I want to know what the detailed status is for today, and I'm just going to do dot at the end, detailed status, like so. That should work. So let me just end that. Then we're going to do pressure. So pressure equals, and it's going to be the same thing, but at the end it's going to just change to be pressure. So let's just paste that in and then change that to pressure. And then we need to do a bit different on the end of pressure. We need to do a dot get, and we need to say press, because this is like an object with extra bits in it, and we just want to get the pressure value. And then I'll show you where we got all this information from, how I know how to do all these things in a second. Humidity equals, and then let's just grab that. Let's grab that one actually. And then instead of detailed status, this is just going to be humidity, like so. And then we want the sunrise and sunset. So sunrise, let's grab that. Sunrise, and then let's just copy that exact same one and just do it again, but it'll be sunset. Okay, nearly done. Then we're going to do now this sunrise and sunset actually gives you back a time object, and time objects have this weird universal time format, and we want to convert that, instead of it just being the number of seconds since the epoch, which is like the 1st of January 1970, I think, which is like a really big number. We want to actually know what the date and time is, because we want to be able to use it for the sunrise. We want to know the hour, the minute, and the second of the sunrise, rather than just the number of seconds since the Unix epoch. So what we actually have to do on there is just wrap this around a datetime function, which is utt time from timestamp. And then we pass in that sunrise, and then we just do string from time, and then we pass in what we want the string value of this to be. So this is kind of the format. So there is, again, a bit of special knowledge required for this. So %h means give me the hour, and then just put a colon, give me the minutes, and then give me the seconds, like so. So I think what we can probably do is just copy that and paste that, because it's going to be exactly the same, but for sunset. Sunset. Okay, and then what do we need next? We want to get the temperature. And the temperature, again, is quite a complicated object, so we'll just do temperature. And we want to get that forecast daily thing again. and we want to get the temperature, and we want that in Celsius. And we also want to get that dot get, and we want that to be day, because you can have like day, night, morning, afternoon, that kind of thing. We also want to get the minimum and maximum temperature. Actually, I'm not going to use them. I'm not going to use them, but you can get them. So instead of doing day there, you can do get temp min or temp max to get the minimum and maximum, but we just want to get the overall average day temperature. So that'll be fine. And then is that it? And then UVI index. So UVI equals forecast. So the same thing, forecast.forecast daily, 0, and then UVI, that's it. Okay, so what I'm now going to do, I'm just going to print out what all these different things are. So I'm going to do detailed status, and then I'm going to do comma detailed status. I'm going to do print, what's the next one? Humidity, and then humidity. Then we're going to do pressure. It doesn't really matter which order these in. These are going to be commented out anyway. This is just really for troubleshooting. Pressure, print, and then we're going to have sunrise. Let me just make sure that's got a space in it. Sunrise. And then we're going to have the same to be sunset. Then temperature. And then finally UVI. Okay, so what we need to do now, instead of just printing out that, let's print out the forecast. Let's see what happens when we run that. So have I got any bugs in there? So it's printing out. So yeah, what I need to do is return a string. So let's just return. Let's return the message that we want it to actually say. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say, let's build the message up. Message equals. Here is the weather. Today will be mostly, and then plus detail status, and then let's just do a new line, humidity of, and then humidity, and humidity is in a percentage, so we're just going to say percent. It'll be like 53 and then percent. Then we're going to do and our pressure of, and then pressure, and pressure is expressed in millibars, which is just a weird, why is that not happy there? So I'm sure that should be fine. Does it need a plus there? That's what it needs to have, sorry. We're just adding to the string, so we just need a little plus at the beginning. Okay, and why is that now complaining about that? Statements must be separate on new lines or semicolons. It's fine in my code, maybe I'll just need to finish that one off. So then we need another one, we need sunrise, we need a full stop. Sunrise was at, I'm assuming that when we do this, it's already going to be sunrise, but I mean, technically, sunrise might not have happened yet when you ask it, but we'd have to have a bit more complex code to figure out what the time is now and whether it's happened or not. Is the time now past sunrise or not, and therefore change our language, so instead of is and was. But I'm not going to do that, I'm just going to make this easy for myself. Okay, so now we just need to do, why is that messing about there? I think this is to do with the indentation level. So that first one's fine. Let's just put them all the same. And then we're going to have sunrise was at blah blah blah, and sunset was is at, and then plus sunset. Okay, and then finally, let's just have the UVI. And then let's just say plus UVI. Now the UVI is just a number at the moment, so it'll just say like 3, 5, 7, whatever. So we'll have to unpack that with another function in a minute. Right, but now what we can do now is we can just say return message. Okay, so why has that got a bug there? Let me just figure out what's going on there. So that looks fine. So message starts with, there we go, needs a plus there. And we've got too many pluses there. Do we need that? Would that work better? Yeah, let's take out the pluses from there and put them at the end. Seems to be complaining about that here. Not sure why. Nope, that's not happy, is it? So what am I doing wrong there? So I've got speech marks, speech marks. That does look weird. I'm looking at humidity, doesn't look correct. It should be blue like the other variable, so there's something wrong there. Let me just try and figure that one out while we go through it. So I've got the message, I've got my thing at the end. I've printed out my code. I'm just going through the exact same piece of code there. So I'm a bit confused why it's unhappy with that. See, even that there, detailed status doesn't look right. So detailed status is there. Detail status, detailed status? No, detail status, that's what I've called it. And that should work. I don't know why that's complaining. Can only be used within a function. This is within a function. So why does it think that it's not in a function? Let's put the plus there. Let's put them pluses back. I'm sure they should be at the front of the code. And why is that unhappy there? Come on, what's going on? What is going on? So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to quickly cheat by going back to my GitHub code. I'm going to show you a couple of things just while I look at that as well. So first of all, if we go to Openweathermap, we can look at the API stuff, but that doesn't really help us because it's all kind of JSON objects. So if I go to, there's a comma on line 54. Is there really? Or are you joking me? Line 54, there's a comma. No, that comma's fine, that can be in there. See, that's changed now. I'm just going to run it and see what it says. Unexpected character after line continuation character. So maybe there's just spaces after it. It's just very fussy. Right. Yep, so I'm just going to go back. Back to, I don't want Apple TV started. Right, we're going to go back to this web thing here. So this is great if you understand APIs and JSON and you're happy to deal with that. But if you want to just create your code using Python, we want to look at the documentation for Python. So if I go to PyPy and we look for that Py Open Weather Manager, and if we look at the actual code for that, it talks about how to use stuff there, but it says there's some documentation. If we go to the home page there, we'll go to either the read the docs thing or the information that we're after. So I'm just going to go down here, blah, blah, blah. So there you go, read the docs. So the documentation is on the read the docs. And the bit that I was looking for is all the one call. So there's so much data that you can get from this Openweathermap, and therefore through this, that I go for the code recipes and then the one call data. So this piece of code is pretty much what we've got running, but instead of doing lat and long, we use that geocode to get that. And then we can get things like the humidity, we can get things like historical data, so all kinds of stuff. So if you just go to that link there, read the docs latest So yeah, pi openweathermanager.readthedocs.io. If you go there, you'll get all the information that you need. I'm sure there was something else I'm going to show you. Yeah, so on GitHub, if you go to the Python AI, so Kevin McAleer / Python AI, and you can see that there is a couple of different releases here. So we go to the releases. There's 2 releases. So well, we have the initial release where we just had the joke skill. Then we had the to-do lists last time, and today we've got the weather and facts. So if we go into the source code for that, we can actually look through and see what the code should actually be. So if I go to that weather.py there, for example, what I was going to do if I couldn't get that working is just have a quick look through the code, which is this message bit here that we've just been working on. Okay, so let's get back to our code because we've not quite got it to the same state as that yet. Let me go back to that. Okay, so let's try this again. We're going to run this and we've got that there. Great. So if I come down here, the forecast, it's going to return the message. So the message should be all that. Let me see why that. So that's forecast, and we want that to be forecast. So it should return that message. Now, one of the issues here is these detailed status things are objects, and we want them to be a string. So what we have to do is wrap some of these return things as a string object. So what we do to do that. Let me just see which is the first one that needs it. So I think it is the pressure. So where we've got pressure there, we're going to just do str in brackets at the very beginning and the very end. And what that will do is that will make that a string object. So we're going to do the same thing with humidity. So str, just to make it a string. The date, time, string, like so. And the temperature we are going to do as a string, I think, as well. Let me just check. Yep, so that's a string as well. And then the UVI will do that as a string as well, just for now. So let's run that again. So what's it saying there? Line 54. So that's the one where we do the humidity. So humidity should be a string. Just debugging what the message is there that it's complaining about, because it should just give us that nice line of text. It should say today's weather is, and then give us what we're after. So let me just clear all that out and then just run that again. We can see what's going on there. Woo, what's all that? That looks interesting. So it's still giving us a weird object, which is not what we're after really. So let me just double check one more time to see is there anything else that we need to do there. So detailed forecast, that doesn't need to be a string. Everything else looks like it does. Sunrise and sunset don't need to be, apparently. Let me just remove that from there. And what I'll do is I'll probably just cut and paste that code again, just to speed up this, because I'm coding live here and it's not always very easy to do that right. So that's returning the message, and then we want to basically just print that message out. So let's, at the end of doing this, let's just print that to the screen as it is. Let's just see what happens. So are we actually calling that function? So this is called forecast. So myweather.forecast, and forecast is a piece of code. Let's again make that a property so that we don't have to call it with the little brackets. That probably will fix up what we're looking for. Right, that's better. So press.press isn't correct. What's that instead? Pressure.press. Pressure.getPress is not square brackets, they're round brackets. Let's try that. Let's see if that's going to compile. So we don't have anything called sunrise. What's wrong with that? Sunset time and sunrise time. So that's the only thing I've done wrong there. So instead of being sunrise, it's sunrise time and sunset time. Right, let's see if that's going to work. There we go. Okay, so here is the weather. Today's weather will be mostly clear sky, humidity of 57% and a pressure of 1025 millibars. We just need a space as well after millibars. Where's that? Pressure of blah 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 millibars space. Sunrise was at 04:03:22 and sunset is at 20:28.08, and then it's just got that 7.53. That's the UVI index. That means it's quite high actually. So let's create a new little helper function. Let's do it over here, and let's just quickly code this out. It's not a very complicated one. It basically just looks up the value depending on what we pass in. So let's call it UVI UV index, and let's pass in a value that was going to be the UVI, and that's a floating point number. It's going to give a bit of a code hint there. Right, so what we're going to do now then is just give a little message. So this returns the message depending on the UV index provided. Okay. So what we're going to do here, it's just going to be like a load of if statements basically. So message equals blah blah. If UVI is less than equal to 2.0, so any values up to 2.0, sorry, just jumping about there, then message equals, and we're going to say the ultraviolet level is low. No protection is required. If UVI, and then this is going to be a little bit more complicated because there's two values, so this is going to be, now you can type this in different ways, but I prefer it to do kind of long-handed like this. So if UVI is greater than equal to 3 and UVI is less than equal to 6, sorry, is less than 6, not less than equal to 6, then we want to copy that message, but instead of it being low, it's going to be medium. And skin protection is required. Skin protection is required. Okay, the next one is very similar, but that's going to be high. So that's going to be between 6 and 8. Oops. 8. That's high. And yep, that's fine. And then the next one is the one that's like ridiculously high. It's like hell on earth. So that's between 8 and 11. So this is very high. And we will say extra skin protection is required, whatever that means. And then finally, we've got one which is anything that's over 11. If UVI is greater or equal to 11, then is extremely high. Extremely. So let's say caution is advised and extra skincare is required. Right. Okay, and then what we're then going to do is simply just return that message like so. So now what we can do is where we've got this UVI thing, we can just wrap that in the call to the function. So instead of just saying UVI, we can say self dot UVI, UV index, and then just pass in that UVI like so. So now if we run it, all being well, so let's not happy about that. All right, so we've wrapped our UVI number as a string. Let's take that out actually, just so that this works. Let's pass that in. There we go. So today the weather is blah blah blah, and then at the end it says skin protection. The ultraviolet level is high. Skin protection is required. That's because it's 7 point something, 7.53, and that's that is between these ones here, so that's a high. So what we can do now is we can actually we can suppress all those print statements. That was just to check things worked, so we can just put a little hash pound in front of all them, and then that's fine. So that is pretty much our code for the main weather class. I'm just seeing if there's anything else in there that we needed to create, and I don't think there is. Cool. So what I'm going to do now, I'm just going to comment out the demo bit because we don't need that anymore. And then back in our alf.py, we need to add in some extra code. So we're going to import, so from weather, import weather, like so. And then what we can then do is further down in our main code loop, where we've got all these different if things, we can say if command in, and then let's think of some commands that will get us our weather. So let me have a think what we could have in there. Should I put this in here somewhere so I could easily grab it? So if command in, what is the weather like, or give me the forecast. What else would you say when you're asking for the weather? What's the weather? And so on. So if it's one of those, then we're simply going to call a new skill that we're going to call weather. So let's create weather up here. Let's just stick it there, that's fine. Weather. And so somebody's asking a question about, is this because AI is, the functionality is hard coded? So currently we don't have a skills framework, so we are hard coding things in here. But what we intend to do is make it so that we can add skills kind of dynamically as a package. But currently we're hard coding these skills in there. So let's just do the, so my weather equals weather. It's like a weather object, and then we'll do my weather dot forecast, was it? So then just do return my weather dot forecast. That's fine. So on here, that's going to return it. Actually, we don't want to return it. We want alf to say it, don't we? So alf dot say my weather dot forecast. And what we'll also do is just print it out just to make it easier to see. So in fact, let's just do forecast equals, because we're going to reuse that. Like so, and then print out forecast, and then say forecast. So ultraviolet needs an R. Where was that? Was that on my other bit? Ultraviolet. Was that when I was building out the message that says, might not put the temperature in. Temperature's not being used there apparently, so let's just put in the temperature as well. Some blah blah blah. So blah blah blah. So after that one, let's just add in another one, which is the temperature is temperature degrees, and like so. That. Right, let's just go back to there. Let me just run that.
Hello.
Yeah. What's the weather like? What is the weather like?
Here is the weather. Today will be mostly clear sky, humidity of 57% and a pressure of 1025 millibars. The temperature is 25.03 degrees. Sunrise was at 4 hours, 3 minutes, and 22 seconds, and sunset is at 20 hours, 28 minutes, and 8 seconds. The ultraviolet level is high. Skin protection is required.
Right, let me just correct that. Ultra. So that's up in here. Ultraviolet. So let me just put those R in. Okay. Was there anything else I need to correct? That string looked a little bit funky there. So what I'm going to do is just find the bit where it builds it out and just put in the space. So pressure of something millibars, that was what was wrong. And then after degrees, we need a space as well. It's just to print it out. We don't need that print message there, so we can get rid of that. And that's it. Let's just cancel that out. Goodbye.
Goodbye.
Right. Okay, so what we're going to do now very quickly, we can add an extra skill which literally takes seconds to do, but it's really fun. And this is called random facts. So what we're going to do is do pip install randfacts. Is it pi randfacts or just randfacts? I think it's randfacts. Yeah, there we go. And randfacts will just give us random facts. It has a filter on by default, which you can turn off if you want to get the more blue kind of facts. But we're just going to go with the standard ones. So if we come up to our main thing here, and we can say from randfacts import randfacts, and then let's create a new, instead of like joke, it's very similar to that one. We can just do fact or facts, and then we can say fact equals randfacts.getFact, I think it is, and then we can just say print fact, and then alf.say fact. Okay, and then we just need to add in the command to check for, so command in tell me a fact, tell me something, and then we just run fact. Okay, facts. Okay, let's give this a go.
Hello.
Tell me a fact.
1,000,000,000,000,000 millionth of a second after the Big Bang, the universe was the size of a pea.
Tell me something.
Dreamt is the only English word that ends in the letters MT.
Tell me something.
Construction workers' hard hats were first invented and used in the building of the Hoover Dam in 1933.
What's the weather like? So what I need to do is just add that comma in there. Goodbye. Goodbye.
Goodbye.
Right, so what I'm thinking is if I say something like good morning, I want it to give me a fact, tell me a joke, and give me the weather. And it's kind of like a waking up thing. So let's do good morning, or good evening, or good night. If there's any of those things I want you to do. Let me find it. I've got it on here. Yes, so if it's any of those things. So what we're going to do is to say now equals datetime.now. So that's going to get us the current time. Date time. So what have I done wrong there? I need to import from datetime, import datetime, like so. And then, so we've got the time in the now thing. And then we can say hour equals now.hour. And if hour is less than equal to 0 and less than equal to 12, and that's like saying if hour is less than 12, sorry, it's less than 0, between 0 and 12, then that's going to mean that it is morning. So message equals morning. If hour is greater than equal to 12 and less than equal to 17, which is like 5 o'clock, the message equals afternoon. It's between those times. And then if hour is between 17 and what, midnight? Oops. Well, 21, let's do that. So that's message equals evening, and otherwise, so if hour is greater than 21, then message equals night. So what this is just doing is just making it kind of dynamic depending on what time of the day. So message equals, so even though we set it there, we can then say message equals and then good, and then is it morning, evening or night? So the message again, and then plus, and I'm just going to put my name, I'm just going to hard code that in there, and then we're going to get Alf to say that message. Then we're going to get him to tell me the weather. Oops. Then we're going to get him to do list any to-dos that we've got in our to-do list, and tell me a joke, and tell me a fact as well. Right, facts. Okay, so that's good morning, good evening, good night. Let's run this and see if that works.
Hello.
Good afternoon. Good morning.
Good evening, Kevin. Here is the weather. Today will be mostly clear sky, humidity of 57% and a pressure of 1025 millibars. The temperature is 25.03 degrees. Sunrise was at 4 hours, 3 minutes, and 22 seconds and sunset is at 20 hours, 28 minutes, and 8 seconds. The ultraviolet level is high. Skin protection is required. The list is empty. Complaining about the lack of smoking shelters, the nicotine-addicted Python programmer said there ought to be spaces for tabs. Each day, anywhere from 150 species of life go extinct.
Tell me a joke. Tell me a joke.
I had a problem, so I thought I'd use Java. Now I have a problem factory.
Tell me a fact.
The Betham Tower has 47 floors.
Goodbye. Goodbye.
Goodbye.
Awesome. So we've just built a new skill which is able to go onto a weather service, and I've chosen Openweathermap. There are plenty of other weather providers out there, but this was one of the ones that was easier. And with that Python Openweathermap library as well, that made it even easier for us to grab what we needed. I was looking for a pollen provider, and it seems to be quite a difficult thing to find. So I wasn't able to find, certainly with Openweathermap, something where I can get, is the pollen level high, medium, low? What kind of pollen is there? There's other types of air pollution that you can look into as well with Openweathermap, but I was just trying to keep it simple for this demonstration and just to build out the skill to begin with. We can always expand these skills too. And then that fact one, I thought that was nice, simple, an easy one to do. There used to be a command line thing on Unix, and I'm not sure if it's still there. And it would tell you similar kind of things. It would give you facts or one-liners like limericks, all kinds of stuff like that. And when you logged into your terminal in the morning, you would get one of these little facts or limericks appearing on there. And I was thinking, I'm sure there's something like that. And the random facts library has got those there. So that's why we're able to use that. Cool. So the other thing I was just teasing just at the very beginning of the show is I was sent a box in the post this week. What's in this box? So I'm going to do a video about what's in this box, but I'll show you what's in this box. So I was contacted by a company, and they said, would I review the contents of this for a video? And I guess I get to keep the contents of this box as well. So I'll do that for the midweek video. But yeah, it's a Raspberry Pi Pico based kit, and there's all kinds of stuff in there. There's loads of stuff that we've covered on the channel previously. Things like the little robot face there, the rangefinder. There is all kinds of other sensors as well. And similar, like the little face that we've got on our robot, there's one of these, there's 4 of them actually in there. But there is also a sensor that I've not come across before. There's a tilt sensor, which I think uses mercury to detect if it's tilted. There is a ring, like a NeoPixel ring thing, and quite a few other bits and pieces. So I'm looking forward to opening this up and doing a video on that. So stay tuned for that one. And let's have a look at what people have said on the poll. So I'm just looking over in the chat, and I'll come to the comments people have made. And yeah, home automation is the clear winner there. You've still got a couple of minutes before I close that poll out if you want to vote on that, if you've not voted already. But that poll, if you scroll up in the chat there, you'll see that's what skill should we work on next. So the AI skill for home automation is going to connect to MQTT, which we have looked at before. We've done a couple of videos on this. We did one on Node-RED, but we'll do one on how to connect to MQTT. Now, I do have an MQTT server running in my home network, so we'll be able to do things like turn lights on and off with that. We can have all kinds of fun. So I shall wire up some lighting, probably using something like... so I've got these things called SON-offs. This is what they look like. And a SON-off is for software on-off. And you can see there, it's a smart Wi-Fi powered switch. If we just take the back off this and have a look what's inside it. So there's a little circuit board. And if I just show you the back of that, I don't know if it'll properly focus on that. But that little black chip there, oops, is an ESP32... an ESP8266, which we know can run MicroPython. So we can put, and I have put MicroPython on this. I can connect this up. We can connect to it. We can write a little program that says if a flag is set to 1, then make the relay switch on. If the flag is set to 0, then switch the relay off. And then we can build a skill around that to say switch this thing on or off. So we can do that quite simply, but it's really good fun because you can make lights turn on and off as well. And there's all kinds of other plugins for MQTT, because if you can get something that connects to, I don't know, an Apple phone or an Android home kit type thing, then you can send messages to an MQTT server from that. I have done that in the past. I've created my own lamps and fans and things like that, and heated mirror that use those SON-offs. I didn't actually use Python, but we can use MicroPython now, and yeah, we'll be able to connect that up. So looking forward to doing that one. So I'm glad you picked that one actually. So let's end that poll, and yeah, there we go. That's what we're working on next then, the home automation. So let's have a look through some of the comments that people have made. Let me just scroll back up, and let's see what. So Carlos was saying about the facial recognition video that's on YouTube. I did this one probably like January, February this year, and for some reason it got corrupted. So the speech, what I'm saying, and the video are out of sync, and there's nothing I can do about that. I've tried to restore the original video. If I've got the original one on my computer, I'll just upload it and replace that one. But yeah, maybe we just need to cover that off again and go through the same content. I've still got all the same slides and whatnot. So yes, I was saying that one I think is corrupted. So any idea when it'll be corrupted? Is the code available for that? So yeah, I'm pretty sure all the code is available for that. I'll have a look through that one for you, Carlos, and see where we're up to with that. But it's probably, if you go to my GitHub page, so if you just go to GitHub/Kevin McAleer and you have a look through some of my repositories on there, you'll find what you're looking for. I create a new repository for every little piece of code that I write, basically. But so the one that we've been working on just today was that Python AI, but I think, is it called speech? Actually, I think that one is in Smars Lab. I think Smars Lab has the speech code in it. I think I might have moved it to a subfolder. Yeah, non-Smars Lab has got all the speech stuff, and the Opencv, that's the one that you're probably looking for. Yeah, so that imports like PyCamera, CV2, which is the computer vision library, NumPy, which is like a number manipulation data science thing. And yeah, it's not a very big piece of code really. So it just grabs something and it just says, are there any faces in it? Because faces, you can just do this face cascade, detect multiple scale, blah, blah, blah. It does it all for you. There's a built-in library function for detecting faces, and then it'll just output if it's found one. So it's quite a simple piece of code, that. So if you go to GitHub/Kevin McAleer/Smars Lab and just have a look through there in the for the Opencv temp.py, you'll get what you're looking for there. Cool. Good. So that's that one. So what else have we got on there? Do you like all these random things? I'm not going to post that one up from Twitch. I'm going to have to stop broadcasting on Twitch. Want to be famous? Buy followers? Then click this link. Yeah, right. So Inverted Engineer says, hello, hello. My mum says there was an error on line 54. There was a comma. But you were nearly right. There was a space at the end of that line. That's what it's complaining at. So put the code on a single line and see if it doesn't like it. So that's a good idea from Martin there. And that's the reason why I use that sort of slash at the end of the lines. Visual Studio has this code linter. Lint's like the fluff you get in your pockets, isn't it? But the idea is that you can put all the bits of stuff in your code that don't actually make any difference to the compiler, but make a difference to you reading it. And long lines are not very easy to read. So that's why they want you to be like 80 characters or less per line. Kareem was saying, is this an AI because the functionality is all hard-coded? So the AI part is that it's using artificial intelligence to do things like speech recognition, and then we're building skills into that speech recognition. We have got some more AI to build into our AI assistant to do with natural language processing. And it's really hard to do. Even conceptually, it's quite hard to do. Because when you say a sentence, you can get Python to recognize separate words. You can get those words to be categorized or classified as nouns, adjectives, verbs and all that. But how do you extract the meaning of that? So if I say, I don't not want something, does it understand double negatives and all that? You can get it to figure these things out, but it's quite a complicated thing to do. So yes, Carlos is saying thank you for that, no problem at all. Great. So yeah, the other thing I was going to say in the chat thing, you can do super chats now. I've not tried these myself yet, but you can do things like, let me just put on here, you can do little icons. If I just post this into the chat and let it pop up on my comment screen there. On here it just shows us like the code, like oops, but on the chat program in let's see if I can bring this up very briefly. So if I just show you this for a second, and I just move myself out the way, like that, you can see there we get like the little monkey thing there. So you can do that just by clicking down here on the little custom emojis, and I've created these, like this little Python snaky one there, or there's the code one there, and then there's a little MicroPython one there as well. And they show up as like tongue and snake and code. Did I show that one? And then you can also do super chats. So if you want to support the channel whilst you're watching this, you can actually do a little super chat. So you click on this little support thing here, and you can either send a super chat or a sticker. So if you send a super chat, it'll say how much do you want to send to support. So if I just say like I'm going to send, I don't know, £1, something like that. And then I just, I'm going to send a message with that. Buy and send. So you have to have set up your account to do that, I guess. But then you can send a little message. Yeah, you really want to see all my details there. Let me just flick over to me for a second. Right, there we go. So that's now gone back. And then if I go back to that screen there, see it says I've got a super chat. So I can bring that on there. And it says I've got a super chat. So it's just another way of supporting the channel if you wanted to do that during the then there's a little screen thing that comes on that I've not set up yet. We just get an orange bar at the moment. That's Stream Elements. So I need to set that up so that works properly. But yeah, it's just another way of supporting the channel whilst it's live if you wanted to do that. So that's it. Cool, I think that's everything I wanted to cover off today. So we went through the little box thing. We went through the skill. Was there anything else we wanted to cover off today? I don't think there is. Cool. Hopefully you enjoyed this and you found this useful and you're building your own AI as well. If you are building your own AI, I want to know what you've called it, and I want to know what kind of skills you're looking to add to it as well. So add them to comments on this video as well, and I'll have a look at those too. So thanks everybody for watching, and I shall see you next time. Watch out for the midweek video. Thanks everybody. See you next time.